guys, it's Nikki here. I'm here today to do my both favorite and least favorite video to record for this time of year, and that's my top 10 least favorite reads of 2020. Why do I love and hate it? Because I love telling you what I think, because that's why I started this channel, and I hate it because I know some of these opinions are going to be not well received. And I'm interested in the discourse we'll have in the comments below. As with my favorite reads of the year, I'm going to start at the bottom of the list at number 10 and work my way up. Unlike my favorite reads of the year, 10 is going to be the least worst book, and 1 is going to be my absolute least favorite read. So I'll just start. So number 10 on this list for me is The Chain by Adrienne McKinty. I think if the book had been half as long, I would have not put it on this list, because I did enjoy the first half. However, the second half was so completely unnecessary and so, in my opinion, unwarranted. I lost all interest and barely finished the book. A decision was made by the main character after some resolution had been received, so it didn't make sense for her to continue down the road she went on. Number 9, this is The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. This is about a woman who is living in a rental, trying to kind of find herself again after a traumatic incident, and she's finding traces of the woman who lived in this apartment before, and she's like researching it more, and she's kind of finding out what happened to said woman. The twist wasn't super surprising. I kind of anticipated it. And the only reason it is on here is just because I didn't care for the execution of the story. I thought the premise was intriguing, but it did not do it for me. And by the time I finished the book, I was just upset with people in general, and I wasn't super impressed with it. And I put it at the bottom of the list here because although I didn't like it at all, it wasn't terrible. But I also just have read a lot of really good books this year, so it might not even really deserve to be on this list, but these are the top 10 lowest rated books I had this year. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it other than that. So I'll just move on to number 8, which is Dr. Knox by Peter Spiegelman. This one I know why it's on here, because I didn't like it. It's a mystery thriller. It's about this doctor who's ex-military, and now he's working in the really shit part of LA. I just constantly rolled my eyes and was like, I can't believe this is happening. The entire way through the book, there were no consequences for the main character, which was complete bullshit because he's a complete asshat. And that's all I'm going to say. So I'll move to 7, which is The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Jenoff. It's historical fiction, and despite my love of women in World War II in historical fiction, I did not care for this one. I guess this one actually took place during World War I, but I was not impressed with it. Largely just because the decisions the main character made just turned my stomach a little bit. I understand that some of it was maybe reflective of it being a different time, but when I'm presented with a choice, and one of the choices includes the welfare of my daughter, I'm not going to make the other choice. I'm going to make the choice that benefits my daughter the most. And I got so angry when I got to that part that I put the book down and had to walk away from it. I'm interested to see if Pam Jenoff writes more, and I will pick it up because I will give it another shot, but it's just this specific main character ruined the entire book for me. That leads me to number 6, which is Space Opera by Catherine M. McManus. It's science fiction, and I was so disappointed in this. When I picked it up, the first chapter, I was really intrigued because I was like, the description is very similar to Douglas Adams. And by the end of the book, I went, this is written by someone who wanted to write like Douglas Adams, but didn't quite grasp what worked about Douglas Adams' descriptions that didn't work here. And the biggest thing is, while they were interesting, quirky descriptions, they were just too long and too frequent here. And the story itself was pretty harmless. I think I would have really, really enjoyed it had there been less like wading through adjectives and descriptions, but I ended up just being really pulled out of the story because of the descriptions. Number 5 on my list is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. When I picked it up and I read the back, I was super pumped. I was like, adult female friendships, weird vampire stuff, and women coming together, and like Steel Magnolias coming to the rescue. And it was none of those things, and it had really weird, weird boundary defying sex, and it was just gross, and I hated it, and I was so disappointed by this book, and it was so terrible. I was mad that I read it for a vlog. It was just nothing that I expected, and none of it was good. Number 4 on my list is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Maherin. And it is a YA fantasy with a toxic relationship, terrible decisions, 2 main characters that are married due to the flimsiest goddamn premise. And it sets the tone for the entire book. None of it makes sense. I don't know why any of the decisions are being made. I don't like any of the relationships, and the characters are interesting, but none of them interact in a good way. None of them are healthy. None of the relationships. And so now I'm going to go to number 3. My third least favorite read this year was Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. And let me tell you, if I hadn't have gotten this as part of my Book of the Month virtual book club review, I would have put this book down and never picked it up again. I loved the description of rural Russia and urban Russia, and everything else was awful, and the main character was he just went from woman to woman to woman. It was like, oh, look at the plight of the men in Russia during the revolution. It's like, how is this the plight of a man during the revolution? This is literally a man jumping to new women with no regard to the women he's leaving behind. And you'll see a theme here, because number 2 on my list is The Ghost Seer by Friedrich Schiller. Both are classics. Both are translated to English. Maybe it's just the specific translation of these books that I'm not enjoying. The Ghost Seer, it really was more like a philosophical essay rather than a story. It was short, thankfully, but because of how it was written, it was very dry and hard to get through. And just some of the stuff that was being presented, this is one of the few books where I just feel like I'm too stupid to read it. And I ended up just really not enjoying any part of it because I had no idea what was going on. And then my top least favorite book of the year, I technically have 2 books here, but it is The Elite and the One by Kira Cass. It's YA sci-fi, and the premise is really interesting, and again, I think I would have loved it as a kid, but these 2 books could have been combined to make one book, and it still would have been terrible, but then more things would have happened. They were slow, no plot movement, only dragging out the love triangle for no goddamn reason, ignoring all the really interesting political stuff that was going on in this book to focus on, like in this series, to focus on that. It made me so angry. And I stopped the series after that because there's just no point. I was done. And I really just need to stop reading YA books because it is just making me so sad. With that, Those were my least favorite reads of 2020. They are the lowest rated books I have read this year. Like I said, like 9 and 10 on the list probably didn't really need to go on here. They weren't like that bad, but I wanted 10 because it's a round number. Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.